But we move on to what I'm going to straight up say is following in the footsteps of talking about All Out. But unfortunately, it's not because of the circumstance of a pay-per-view being last week. But I think the title of the video for which I'm going to post our WWE Payback preview is simply, is this the least anticipated pay-per-view of 2023? I think that's an absolute yes. And I want to say, this is the least anticipated pay-per-view in WWE in quite some time. I want to say I don't even know, maybe you got to go back to WrestleMania Backlash 2022 in Providence, Rhode Island, about a year and a half ago. Because essentially,
good, dude. This is a good card. I think this card's better than All Out.
Well, I'm not saying that this card isn't better than All Out. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying is, let's look back month for month for month, WWE pay-per-view events, right? Every single pay-per-view event this entire year, and Triple H has done it, the press conference is wide, most watched Elimination Chamber in history, biggest show for an arena crowd in WWE history, biggest non-WrestleMania card in WWE history. Everything has been groundbreaking. Biggest Royal Rumble, biggest Elimination Chamber. Roman and Sami Zayn, that could have main evented WrestleMania. Backlash. I mean, sure, the card, wasn't WrestleMania, but you had the circumstances of Bad Bunny. You had the circumstances of Puerto Rico. You had the crowd that was starved for wrestling there. Not the big set, so you could sell the whole place out. The crowd was crazy. Big time, made it feel like the biggest, and it was the biggest Backlash in WWE history. You move on to Night of Champions. Obviously, the Saudi shows are always pretty well built because the Saudi money and how they have to make them very main event like. Obviously the biggest Money in Bank in WWE history, the biggest crowd in London history, in an arena, the biggest arena show in WWE history. You move on to SummerSlam, the biggest non-WrestleMania. So like the biggest SummerSlam in history. Everything has just been record-breaking, ground-shattering. I've gone to all these pay-per-views. Elimination Chamber's got a store and all this stuff going on around the event and the huge anticipation for it. You can go back to Survivor Series last year, War Games, biggest and most watched Survivor Series ever, the biggest gate at TD Garden ever. You go back to Extreme Rules, and that was one that was kind of a regular pay-per-view, but you had the element of, is Bray Wyatt coming back? And the matches on that had a lot of, interest because a lot of them were feuds that have been going for a little while with stipulations added to it. But the Bray Wyatt thing obviously sent that one over the edge. Before that, you had Clash at the Castle. Before that, you had SummerSlam. Before that, you had Money in the Bank, which is still always going to be Money in the Bank. But now we move on to a pay-per-view, WWE Payback, this week at the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh, that has the build of essentially, a payback from 5 years ago. And I will give WWE this credit. This is some credit that I will give WWE, and that is good for them for not bloating this card, because WWE 5, 6, 10 years ago, because of the card not having the greatest build, because of no Royal Rumbles on the card or Money in the Bank matches on the card, would try to just say like, hey, we don't got Rock versus Cena on this card. We don't got Roman versus Cody on this card, so we'll make up for it by having tons of matches, and I can tell you what, Hit Row versus the Viking Raiders would have been on this card 10 years ago, or the women's tag team belts versus some new put together tag team at the last minute would have been on this card. But good for WWE to be like, what?
Six. Nice.
6 matches.
Short and sweet.
6 matches. And then obviously the Cody Rhodes thing that might be a match or whatever. Obviously, you need Cody Rhodes on this card because the Bloodline is completely void of this card. The first card without the Bloodline on it, I want to say, going back to last year's Extreme Rules in Philadelphia. But good for WWE to be like, what? We didn't. This pay-per-view isn't highly anticipated. None of these matches are things people have been waiting months for. These feuds haven't been boiling over.
No. I gotta stop you there. Rhea Ripley and Raquel, that's a big one.
That we've been. How long has that been?
Months. A few months. Because Raquel's had the injury and stuff. To me, like if I was WWE, I wouldn't be surprised if they put that. Either they're going to start the show with it or they're going to end the show with it, because that to me that's going to be a hell of a match. They built that up really good. I love that match.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it won't be entertaining, and I'm not looking forward to it. I'm just looking at it from like that perspective of what we've been getting all year. That Elimination Chamber felt like the Elimination Chamber, the crowd, the price tag on the tickets, the match for the main event, the whole card itself. I mean, we had Brock versus Bobby. That's a WrestleMania match, right? That was on the Elimination Chamber mid card. WWE Elimination Chamber this past year could rival a SummerSlam card from 10 years ago. Easy. That's all I'm just trying to say, is that this card I don't think rivals a SummerSlam card from 5 years ago. That's all I'm saying.
You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. I'm excited for this card. I really am. I think Seth Rollins and Shinsuke Nakamura could also end the night. There's so many options here.
Great, it's going to put on a great match. Dude. And they're going to put on a great match. But if I asked you the night of SummerSlam, what is Seth Rollins' next title fence? You weren't going to go clearly at Shinsuke Nakamura. That feud's been boiling for months.
They've already been building it up the last few weeks. I think there's been enough time to let it simmer.
No, they've been building it up. It's how they build up any pay-per-view match. You know what I mean? It just kind of shows up the night after the one pay-per-view and builds up to the next pay-per-view. I'm saying, like, with the Bloodline stuff, that has been such a long saga and everything is such a big deal in that kind of the fact that we don't have any of that Bloodline stuff boiling over to this. And like the Judgment Day, really. I mean, they're the Judgment Day, but it's not the some sort of big, huge moment because, again, until this past week on Monday Night Raw, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Judgment Day wasn't a thought. There's been lots of times where WrestleMania matches are put on Wikipedia long before they're announced because fans just put them on Wikipedia because they know that they're inevitably going to happen. There wasn't a lot of matches on this card.
Wait, are we citing Wikipedia here?
We are. I mean, I'm looking at Wikipedia right now to see the card. What I'm saying is, though, there's not a lot of matches on this card that if you asked me 1 month ago, give me something we're going to see at Payback for sure, I couldn't have mentioned any of these. Obviously, Becky Lynch and Trish, we thought that was going to get blown off in Canada.
Ripley and Rodriguez, definitely. I think Shinsuke and Rollins were pretty close to that timeline. I also would say LA Knight and The Miz, too, has been boiling over. That's
been boiling over since SummerSlam because The Miz and LA Knight were busy in the Battle Royal at SummerSlam. So that wasn't a pre-SummerSlam. That's a post-SummerSlam. And I'm looking heavily forward to that. I think that's been a great build. The Miz did an awesome impression of LA Knight this past week. So, and some would say too good of an impression on LA Knight this past week because the problem is when you do such a good impression and you talk about him and you say there's such a flash in the pan, The Miz necessarily, may not be lying about some of that stuff. I love LA Knight. I think he's great. But at the same time, I mean, he said some things that, you can't really say aren't true. And time will tell on LA Knight, if he's a flash in the pan or not. We need to see for sure. We don't know for sure of LA Knight's staying power.
Well, obviously WWE has some stake in him because what have I noticed over the years? The Miz is usually a guy, and I don't want to say this to disrespect The Miz in any way because I respect everything he does for this business. I'm very happy. He's a future Hall of Famer. But The Miz is that kind of guy. He's a utility guy. He'll play ball with anybody. And what I've noticed is he will put guys over. He doesn't care if he wins. He's just helping the business out. So this is the perfect opponent for LA Knight to get himself even more over with the fans, more over with management. To me, this is a good stepping stone, a nice stepping block to the next step, which to me is going to be a singles championship.
This is the first WWE card since Elimination Chamber that is just going to have probably your typical Monday Night Raw SmackDown set because of we're not selling out the entire arena top to bottom, every seat, coming out with the little SummerSlam Backlash Money in the Bank entranceway and showing off that this is a completely full crowd. They're selling it like they would any pay-per-view that's ever been to Pittsburgh before. So they're not giving you out the whole, like, this is unlike any other show that's ever come to Pittsburgh. They're going to present it. It's going to feel like if you went to Pittsburgh for a pay-per-view in the past. And I think Cody Rhodes obviously doing the Grayson Waller effect has the effect of, this is a pay-per-view event, and some fans are expecting big names. And I'm not saying Seth Rollins and Shinsuke aren't, but with a pay-per-view, you're expecting more than just the one big name that's on the poster. I mean, because let's be honest, the poster originally had Seth, Cody, Bianca Belair, Asuka. It didn't ever have the Bloodline, so I'll give them the credit for that. But, there was a chance until about a couple days ago. We weren't sure if Kevin Owens was going to be ready to compete with Sami Zayn. You know what I mean? Because he was fighting through a little bit of an injury. Luckily, they got him at the last minute. So if Kevin Owens wasn't able to compete here, I think that Cody Rhodes on the Grayson Waller effect is just 100. It's the Cody Rhodes being involved at Backlash. You know what I mean? Or it's Cody Rhodes being involved against Dominic Mysterio at Money in the Bank. What did we see Cody Rhodes and Dominic Mysterio for at Money in the Bank? to get Cody Rhodes on the card because, we needed that big name to make this a big event.
Cody's going to get physical. Cody will get physical.
He is absolutely going to get physical.
No doubt.
But the reason that is happening because they need that kind of big name on this show. They need that Cody Rhodes. He's on the poster. He is essentially, I don't mean to take anything away from Seth Rollins, but, they try to make it out that Seth Rollins is the face of one show and Roman's the face of the other. I want to say when Roman's not on a card right now, Cody's got to be on that card. Yeah. Cody is the Roman Reigns of the shows that he's not. Like, this past week on SmackDown, they flew in Cody, to be on that for that tribute show. It, specifically, because, when you don't have The Rock, you got to have Stone Cold. When you don't have John Cena, you got to have Batista. When you don't got Roman Reigns, you got to have Cody Rhodes. So no disrespect to Seth Rollins. He's an amazing competitor. I can't wait to see him. He's great, and I personally think, and I'm going to make, without essentially going through the card match by match, because I think Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are holding on to the belts here myself. Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus, I mean, there's no belts on the line there. I think Becky's obviously going to win this. It's a big blow off. She's a good guy. But I'm going to go on a limb here. And, because we don't have the stuff with the bloodline, because we don't have that kind of long-term storytelling, and that is the whole point of this World Heavyweight Championship, to be a championship that's on every single show, that's always being flipped around. Like we saw a couple years ago when you getting mad with Brock Lesnar, and I was not mad because Brock Lesnar can hold that belt differently than the other belt because the belts need to be treated differently. So with this belt being treated differently and not being Roman's belt, I'm saying Shinsuke walks out as the new World Heavyweight Champion.
Well, that's great that you're saying that because I do feel like a Damian Priest cash-in is on the horizon as well. I think Damian Priest is going to be cashing in soon. So in your theory that if Shinsuke is the champion, nothing against Shinsuke, all the respect in the world to him, but Damian Priest, I think, takes that belt from him. That's where I stand. I don't think Seth Rollins gets cashed in on. If he does lose the match to Shin, I think Shin gets cashed in on.
And do you see Austin Theory getting his belt back from Rey Mysterio? I don't think Rey Mysterio is going to hold it long, but this one's kind of like weird because we saw with Austin Theory. I remember like about a year ago when he lost the Money in the Bank, and we're like, man, what? I can't believe they just pushed him to the bottom of the card just like that. And then a week or two later, he got that belt at Survivor Series and took off with it. Austin Theory lost that belt. Unlike Gunther and unlike Roman Reigns, he was right up there with that super long championship reign, and now he got dethroned. Do you see Austin Theory going a different way? Do you see him getting that belt back and catching back up with the Gunthers and the Romans of the world?
I do. I do think Austin Theory wins. I think this is the only title change of the night. I don't think Nakamura wins, and I know that's your pick, but I think Austin Theory is the only. To me, I think he's the one competitor that walks away from the show this upcoming weekend with the belt, changing hands.
I will say with Payback this week, and how this is the least anticipated WWE pay-per-view easily of 2023. I mean, I don't think that's really much of a debate. I don't think there's a pay-per-view on the WWE calendar that has been less anticipated. And that's not saying anything negative about the card, and that's not even saying that it's not anticipated anyway. I'm just saying that 2023 and the way that Triple H has been running things and the way that we saw All In and all these huge, and the wrestling world kind of this big ball of, positivity lately and everything just getting bigger and better. I mean, Money in the Bank, like I said, the price to get in was outrageous. Backlash, the biggest, that backlash felt bigger than any backlash ever in history. Royal Rumble is always just a big deal anyway. SummerSlam, the same thing. Elimination Chamber felt like, again, people were watching Roman and Sami Zayn and saying that Montreal crowd was so hot and this should main event WrestleMania and Sami should win the belt. They were even saying before Roman and Cody, people were like, should Sami win here at this pay-per-view before WrestleMania? I mean, that's how hot that storyline was. So with all of that being said, in comparison, going back for a full calendar year, it's hard to think that Payback here with the builds for these matches is anywhere near some of those cards. But I will say it'll be curious because there's another quote unquote in your house pay-per-view on the horizon in Fastlane in Indianapolis, where again, it's not, the hottest ticket in Indianapolis arena history. It's not completely sold out as of right now. They're not filling the whole arena. They're not trying to find new places where they can put people in to fill up the card. There's no fan access or anything planned for that. If you ask me, name a match for the Fastlane pay-per-view right now. I couldn't give you one because I don't have a clue what's going to be on it other than probably Cody Rhodes. Well, there isn't, but I mean, just what would be on the match right now? What would be a Fastlane match right now that you can say that's going to happen? I don't know. Maybe Gunther's on the card.
Cody Rhodes appears.
Cody Rhodes versus somebody, Seth Rollins versus somebody, Gunther maybe is on that card because Austin Theory is on this card, something, but there's no huge thing. Like, I could tell you Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns were headlining Elimination Chamber midway through December before the Royal Rumble. I could tell you that. I could tell you that the main event for Backlash was going to be the tag team champions versus the Usos in that big rematch. I could tell you the main event for SummerSlam, right? We could kind of build these up in advance. We didn't need to, wait until they officially announced it. I knew, Jay versus Roman was the next in the line before Money in the Bank even took place. So with that being said, I'm curious about, Fastlane, and Fastlane, to be fair, will be more into, the hard period for WWE where they start to go up against more football and they start to go into, away from the summer season, and they'll probably be going up against Major League Baseball playoffs at that time and going to a market that isn't hot. I guess my thing is we've just been so spoiled this year with WWE deciding to take some of their lesser known pay-per-views and put them in front of new markets and give them those new ideas, which gave them a boost. Backlash in Providence, Rhode Island, whatever, but Backlash in Puerto Rico in front of a hot crowd that's going to sell the place out, awesome. Money in the Bank in Hartford, Connecticut, okay, whatever. Money in the Bank in London in front of 18,000, there we go. So I think, if they decided to put Payback, maybe in Quebec City, when they had Raw there a couple weeks ago, or Payback in Paris, France. I can tell you what, if Payback was in Paris, France, you couldn't get your hand on a ticket. The whole arena would be full. They'd be probably trying to draw 22,000 in an arena. It'd be that kind of thing. It's not. It's in Pittsburgh, a regular typical market that'll have Monday Night Raw again in 3 weeks and probably had Monday Night Raw about 3 months ago. And because of that, it's kind of the steam is coming off a little bit as we build towards, the next big pay-per-view for WWE, which is Survivor Series in Chicago. But Payback, I'll be there. I'll be there in Pittsburgh this week. Should be a good show, hopefully. And not highly anticipated.
It will be. You're going to get your money's worth, I bet.
All right. I will say, out of all the pay-per-views I've had to buy tickets for leading up to this, it was one of the cheaper ones. So with that being said, we will talk Payback results and stuff next week on the show. We can't wait to do that.